An hour's drive south of Beira, and you can see why that city is effectively an island. Climate scientists have been warning the world for decades that man-made climate change would do two things. It would mean that hurricanes and cyclones would become more and more intense, and that therefore some of the people with the world's smallest carbon footprints would pay the heaviest price. Right now, you can see that all across this region of Mozambique. The country's infrastructure ripped up, obliterated, people's lives pulled apart and destroyed.
To leave Beira is to enter a new and saturated landscape, the vast and lethal calling card of Cyclone Idai. Villages of wood and thatch stood no chance. Last Friday night, the battering would go on for 8 hours. Inike points to the ruin that was home till last Friday. Like so many here, Inike would tell us it was incredible. It started around 10 last Friday and went on until 6 in the morning. His neighbour, also homeless, injured by the storm, like so many thousands here. Zacharias hit by debris whilst desperately trying to protect his home. So now they live here, a rough shelter at least from the sudden torrential rainstorms, a makeshift shack on a road embankment. In this world, elevation means salvation. So now they survive on catfish netted here and scraps of maize found in the floodwaters. One family's lost harvest, another's found lifeline. It is survival, nothing more. And water? Everyone just shrugs. We drink the floodwater, they say. A mile or so up the road, this is the railway station in Tika. Home, if that's the word, to more than 500 people made homeless by the cyclone. Overnight here, there was yet more torrential rain. Francisca and her friend Aisha are preparing maize, again found in the floodwater. They say that and a few fish from the same floodwater is all they have, and this, shamefully, is a week on from the cyclone. A few miles further down the road, and there is no road. They don't know how many people are still to be reached out there, but the aid agencies know they can't get to them by land. Others are making it out from the flood zone to the beaches at Beira, where there is at least some food and water. But thousands are beginning to arrive in the city, itself 90% damaged, with no electricity and limited supplies of safe water. The WFP, World Food Programme, and other agencies have begun emergency food aid distributions, but this is very little, and frankly, a week on, it is very late. Outside the city, frankly, who knows what's going on? The government talks of 15,000 people unaccounted for, but it's very close to guesswork. The WFP agrees.
The real problem, and that's why the assessment is longer, will be in the country outside of Beira, where basically that's water everywhere, and it's very difficult to reach the people and to know what's happening, knowing that obviously communication and electricity are inexistent.
The city of Beira after dark, a ghostly place with no electricity and none expected to be connected before the end of the month. Beira's main square by night, a desperate place where hundreds sleep rough. They tell us they've come here because it provides at least some kind of shelter. Victims from the smashed suburbs and the inundated countryside alike. Thousands more are coming here each day.
Well, let's talk a little bit finally about the road we've travelled today. It ends in obliteration here, which shows just how impossible it is to transport aid around this region in anything like the way that it is needed. It is impossible. The other end of it, up at the international airport, where clearly there should be large numbers of heavy lift helicopters, they are not there. And all this a week on. Indeed, at 8 o'clock tonight, it's going to be 1 week exactly since the cyclone hit this region. It is fair to say, therefore, that the world has woken up rather late to the disaster in Mozambique. Back to you in London.
Alex Thomson there in Mozambique. Well, earlier I spoke to Felipe Chiduma, the High Commissioner for Mozambique, in the studio, and we were joined by Jamie Lasser of the International Red Cross, who's at the Emergency Operations Centre at Beira Airport. And I began by asking Jamie Lasser about the operation.
We are moving from the search and rescue phase of this emergency operation. And now we are into the humanitarian response to make sure that we are supporting the affected communities with immediate interventions that can help stave off any future crises that may come, and guarantee that we put them on the road to recovery. The situation is dire here. We're not only affected by a cyclone here in Beira, but we're also affected by floods to the west. Floods that now have a square kilometerage of 3,000 kilometers. This is an immense, immense land volume that is covered by water. And although the floodwaters are receding, it's the size of Luxembourg and requires real support from the humanitarian community to address.
What can you tell us about the number of casualties?
Our job here is not to focus on the number of casualties, and although we mourn them, our job is to keep the living alive. And that's where I'm putting my team's focus.
Okay, Jamie Lasser, stay on the line. I'm going to just turn to the High Commissioner now. Thank you very much for coming to the studio. High Commissioner, 90% of houses destroyed in the city of Beira? I mean, that is an extraordinary number.
Pretty much so. It is, as he said, it is very dire. This cyclone and the ensuing rains and destruction, it has been such that it had no parallel in the history of Mozambique. That city...
Not even the big storm at the end of the 90s?
Yeah, no. The city has been there for 100 years or so and never seen something like that. So it is something beyond imagination. The UN, as you recall, said that this storm might have been the biggest ever in the Southern Hemisphere.
How many years do you think it'll take for Beira and the region around it to recover from this?
That's a very good question. I'm glad that we are having emergency assistance. Assistance is coming, and we are minimizing the people who are losing, who could otherwise be losing their lives. That's very good. The problem is that whenever emergencies like this happen, you will find a lot of support in the original phase, like the one in which we are now today. After that period is over, it becomes a forgotten emergency. So that will determine exactly the number of years which will be required for us to recover the city of Beira, which will require a massive program of reconstruction. It's not just Beira, actually. It's more. This event affected 5 provinces together, but the most affected is Sofala province and Manica province.
I want to get back to you in a minute. Jamie Lasser, what do you need most right now from the international community?
What we need right now is attention, focus, support, and drive to support us on the ground to help the communities. I want to compliment what the High Commissioner said there, in that the long term is the focus.
High Commissioner, there seems to be a scientific consensus around the belief that this severity was caused by climate change. If that is true, then what do you need to do in order to guard your country from similar storms like this in the future?
Oh, that's a good question. You know, if it is a weather-related issue, it's a climate change, then it is punishing the people who have nothing to do with it. We have not played a dent in the gas emission, which are the cause for this. So what is important is for those that are in a position to do so, those countries that are in the forefront of these issues, to understand that today's Mozambique suffering from the devastation. But
So you're saying that countries that produce more emissions...
Yes. Denial of the climate change, that climate change is an issue, well, it becomes an issue. It's a big problem for us. And unfortunately, if we suffer from something on which we have played no part, then I think it's unfair.
High Commissioner Shadumi, Jamie Lusser in Mozambique, thank you very much to both of you.
Thank you.